Good morning. Today I am sitting with
Ardi Hill
and we are sitting in the
library at the Presbyterian Church in Latrobe on Main Street.
and it is a beautiful big building, and you're a member here.
I
Is
am.
that correct? You also are pulpit supply when the pastor is out of town.
Right, when he asks.
But you're also pulpit supply for a lot of other places.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
God is good.
It's wonderful to see you.
Good to
We
see
we
you.
have known each other for quite some time,
Oh
and
my goodness, yes.
and I have to apologize. I would have done this interview much sooner, but I had heard you retired.
Well,
But
I
then,
am.
oh, you really never retire from the ministry.
No,
you either stay with it or you're boosted out.
Exactly, yes.
And
that's
since you've
true.
not been boosted out, I assume things are going well.
Right, they are.
Now, tell the folks out there how you got in the ministry.
Well, many years ago, obviously, I had a sense that God was calling. And I spoke with our pastor at the time, and I said, the only issue is that I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And there are folks who do not approve of women in the pulpit, including some of my own family members.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, well, you're talking to the wrong person, Ardi, because my wife is also a pastor.
Oh, okay. So you had no sympathy from him.
No sympathy from him. And then, to be honest with you, there were many, many indicators to me that God was calling me. In 1968, I went with a busload of folks from Bedford, actually. I lived there at the time. And they were going in to hear Billy Graham at the, where was it? The ball field, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into Pittsburgh. And at that time, I had been recently divorced. And of course, severely wounded.
Oh, yes,
And,
sure.
and angry. And all those words you can describe. And I knew I was a Christian, or at least I believed I was a Christian, and I was still going to church and all of those things that I had always done. But when Billy Graham preached, he made it clear that in order for me to be forgiven, I needed to forgive.
Right.
And in my head, I'm thinking, what? Why would I forgive him? He's the bad guy in this. And anyway, then I did accept Christ, fully accept Christ at that point, invited Jesus into my heart and into my life, and it changed me forever.
As it does.
Yeah, it does.
You know, we have to, even the Lord's Prayer says, forgive our
Forgive
trespasses.
them. That's what Billy Graham was talking about.
It's a
that
two-way
night.
street, isn't
That's
it?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's terrific.
And up until that point, I was fairly shy. I rarely spoke out loud in any public setting, but really, once that happened, I couldn't stop talking about the grace of God in my life.
And that was a handful of years ago.
Oh, my yes. 1968.
If somebody would come to you today, a young person, a young woman, would come to you today, what advice, and they say, yeah, I'm thinking about going into the ministry. What advice, what have you learned over the years that would be beneficial to them knowing going into the ministry?
Yeah. Pray.
Oh, yes, yes.
Pray.
And that never stops.
That never stops. And listen. Because I think we're real good at praying, saying words, but I'm not sure we then sit back and listen. And I listen a lot. And I think that's so important. But honestly, I thought it was going to be very different from corporate America, because I'd been in corporate America a long time. I had been a corporate librarian in Kennemetal, yes, and I loved my work. But there was certainly a glass ceiling. It has not gone away.
I would agree.
No.
I would agree.
Well, I found out in ministry, there's a glass ceiling.
I'm sure you're more aware of it than I am.
And
yes.
And there are some who have managed to be totally open and still able to do ministry in a positive and loving way. And I think that's where my experience in corporate America was so important to me. Because once folks at Kennemetal learned that I was in the process, started doing I did the course of study, which in the Methodist Church at the time was the way to become a licensed local pastor. And so I never got a seminary degree. I got a certificate. So anyway, I just think it was so important to do that and to listen. And as I was saying, people at Kennemetal began to understand the call, they would come into the library when there's nobody there
Oh,
and talk to me
wow.
and ask me
That
for,
says a
for
bunch.
prayer and all
Yes.
of that. After 9/11 happened, the HR department asked me if I would do a service in the cafeteria that Friday.
Isn't that wonderful?
And everybody on campus, except for, of course, for those who could not leave their station, was welcome to come. And we had standing room only. One of the engineers who had learned that we were going to do that came by my office and he said, "Could I sing the Lord's Prayer? I happen to have it in my briefcase." I said, "I will get approval." And of course they approved it.
Yes.
I mean, who's going to turn down the Lord?
Especially right after 9/11. I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
yeah.
And,
Everyone was looking for some sort of
truly.
open faith.
And as I said, there was standing room only because we all needed that at that point. We still need it. It doesn't happen as freely as
Right.
it did. But I believe there is still that need for us to be open about God and receiving the hope that we know in Jesus. That's core to everything that I do.
Oh, yes, it
Yeah.
should be. Absolutely.
Everything,
That's the
right.
place. Speaking of singing the Lord's Prayer, there are certain songs when I hear them, 100% of the time I think of that person. And there's a song that every time I hear the song, I think of you. And that song is "Let There Be Peace on Earth." Because you told me once upon a time,
Yeah.
years ago, that was your wedding song.
It was.
And it's a beautiful song, but why did you choose, instead of "Here Comes the Bride" or the
Yeah,
wedding march,
yeah.
why did you choose
Well, I just think
"Let There Be
that-
Peace on Earth"?
That song speaks to me. Well, if I expect peace anywhere, I have to be willing to be that vessel or that vehicle, maybe more than a vessel, a vehicle that will go out and offer peace. There's another song that I really, really love that it's new. It's a Gaither. I'm a big Gaither fan. And it's "Love Them Where They Are."
I don't think I'm familiar with
If
that.
you get it-
I'll have to Google that.
Yeah, Google that,
Yeah.
or go on to, I use Apple
Yeah.
Music. It's a wonderful song, and it really speaks, I think, to the world that we're living in now, in that we must love them where they are. And I've often said, we're going to love them into heaven. We're not going to hate them into heaven.
That's true. Right.
And the only way to get them there is to love them.
Absolutely.
Whether we approve, whether all those things, I think that we put too many we build this little thing and we have this thing where you think everyone has to fit into that,
Right.
but
Right.
we don't all fit.
One size fits all. I often quote the Amazing Grace, when we've been there 10,000 years.
Right.
Will these things that we divide over, I know some are more important than others, I
Yeah.
get that. But these little itty-bitty things, will they matter in 10,000 years?
Right.
And they're
And
just not going.
I always just say that why don't we let God be God?
Yes. I like that.
I think
God
that's
be
what
God.
we really need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, why are we so busy saying, well, you have to say it this way and you have to do that? Why are we doing that when it's really up to God anyway?
But you're absolutely right. We're not going to save them. We're not going to reach them for Christ when we're pushing them away.
Yeah, that's right.
When you push them away, they're going to go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very basic, but yet we somehow miss that, don't we?
Exactly, we do.
We do miss that.
Yeah.
So,
But I love what I'm doing now because I have freedom, and I get calls from pastors in various walks. I've preached in the UCC church, the Methodist church, Presbyterian church. I mean, basically, I go where God calls. I have preached at Redstone, the retirement community in Greensburg, for many years. Once a month for many, many years I've done that.
is that a hard congregation or is that an easy
It's
congregation?
an easy congregation. They love me and I love them.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a church service once a month at Harmon House, and it depends on the residents that month.
Sure.
Sometimes they're eager to be there, they're
Uh-huh.
happy to see me, and sometimes they're, of course, in somewhere else.
Sure, that's
they're,
right.
They're not in the moment. Yeah.
What had happened recently at Redstone is that some of the families like my style, and so they come on the Sundays that I'm preaching.
Oh, that's very
Yeah.
well. That can't make you feel bad.
No, that was pretty.
That's very
pretty
complimentary.
assuring.
Right.
Assuring that they're hearing the message that God's given me for that particular day. I think. Yeah.
Before I turn the camera on, this is so important. I want to make sure we make time for this. You were talking about human trafficking.
Oh yes.
Which is something, for some reason, nobody seems to want to talk about today,
Right.
but it's a serious issue. Would you take a few moments
Sure.
and share what your role is in that?
Right. I serve on the Westmoreland County Task Force Against Human Trafficking. Our call is to bring awareness. Blackburn Center supports it. That's our focus. They're the ones that started this whole process. And they have many, many resources at the Blackburn Center for all kinds of abuse, for domestic abuse certainly, but also for trafficking and people who are desperately longing for a way out. It's very hard to get out of trafficking once you've been sucked into it.
Yeah.
And statistically, it takes at least 3 times, sometimes more, for someone to stay out of trafficking. Because many times these young people, particularly, have come out of an abusive situation, and that group that they become a part of becomes their family.
Right. Yeah, they're the only people they know, and
Yeah.
who they can trust.
Right.
Yet they're being used.
But we need to bring awareness so that our young people understand the reality.
Right.
Oftentimes, the person who sucks them in is a boyfriend,
That's terrible.
and they will say, well, if you really love me, you'd do this because we need the money for this or that or the
What
other.
makes you stop from just getting so angry? That would, just being part of that would make me so angry. My blood would boil.
Well, I guess what makes me more angry is people who pretend it isn't happening.
And that's true, yes. And
Because-
like I said, we don't want to talk about it.
No,
Yeah.
we don't want to talk about it. We want to pretend it's somewhere else.
Yeah.
The Sound of Freedom was a wonderful movie, but the reality is it happens right here in the United States.
Right.
It happens right here in Westmoreland County. And that's what I think, when people talk to me about the movie, I want to say to them, yes, but that movie focused on offshore.
Yeah.
It's not only offshore.
I also thought it was a wonderful movie, but I was also aware, people have told me, that is this much
Yes.
of a bigger problem.
A bigger problem,
Yeah.
that is correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something else.
Yes. And we need to talk to our young people to help them understand that we love them. We love them the way they are, where they are, and that if anyone does anything that looks off to them,
Right.
they need to talk to one of us. Talk to
Oh,
mom
yes,
and dad.
absolutely.
If it might even be somebody in your family that's selling you, and if that's the case, you need to find a safe place to talk.
Absolutely.
You need to call the Blackburn Center. Call someone. There's an 800 number you can call. There are ways to get help. And I think for me, I think because we have that wonderful resource of Blackburn Center in this community, call your pastor, ask a friend about their pastor.
And,
I mean,
and pray. Just
and
pray.
pray.
God sends
Yeah.
you somebody to rescue you
exactly.
from that terrible, terrible ordeal.
Right.
We have about a minute left. I was hoping you would. The reason for this is to
Okay.
encourage people back to church,
Yeah.
and also to of course, sit down and talk
Sure.
to you. Would you give an encouraging word to the people watching?
Yes, absolutely. We have a man who's been coming to our church at Presbyterian Church in Latrobe. And what drew him in was our wonderful music.
Yeah.
He's going to join the church.
Well, music is
Yeah, in the next
is a
couple of
language
weeks.
that.
He's actually going to join the church.
That's awesome.
And he is a single man. He has run in some difficult times in his life, but he's found a great joy in being a part of this community. He comes to the fellowship gatherings, and we love having him sit at the table. He knows his Bible wonderfully, and so I think we just need to be open to that. You know, maybe it's the music that's going to draw somebody in.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe it's you turning around and saying good morning or welcome or
But certainly,
whatever that
what
is.
you had said before, it's not bringing them in is not pushing them away.
No,
there
that's
has to be
right.
something to draw them. Your
Exactly.
friendly smile,
Yeah.
kind word, music, the preaching of the Bible.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think if you don't come to church, you're missing the community. You're missing that fellowship. And I always think about the fellowship of believers because we don't all believe when we come in. But the goal is that you will understand exactly how much God loves you, and you will find a place where He can heal you if that's what you need. And we all need healing in one way or another. We're all wounded in one way or
absolutely.
another. And I think this is where you find people who will love you just the way you are.
I have had a wonderful time talking to you. Thank you so much for sitting down with me
It's
for
a privilege.
little. Oh, well, no, that's. You just drew me in by saying that. But until next time, God bless.
Thank you.